Ladies and gentlemen, our inductee, C.K. Preacher Gant. He got the nickname Preacher when he was a lad at Pisgah and would mock his family's rural church pastor. Gant played his high school basketball under Red Horton. Horton, an all-time great at Geraldine, was the man who put Pisgah on the basketball map. Gant and the longtime Butler of Huntsville coach T.E. Cotton Rogers, they were teammates at Pisgah. Gant started for the Eagles in 1938, 39, and 40. He performed as an all-county and all-district guard. According to the coach, back then there were no size divisions. We played all day for 2 or 3 days at a time. The 1939 team lost one game before losing to Guin in the state finals. The next year, Pisgah lost to Scottsboro 11-9 in the finals of the district. The legend of the Preacher was born, and his basketball days were just getting started. After serving in the Army Armored Tank Division and receiving 4 major battle stars in the Pacific Theater during World War II, he attended Jacksonville State on scholarship. Jimmy Smothers of the Gadsden Times once wrote of Coach Gant, "There is no denying that he was once the top coach in Alabama, although his teams never won a state championship. He was a head basketball coach for 17 years, winning an average of 23 per season. Those 17 years were at Springville, Geraldine, Alexandria, Fife, Ringgold, Georgia, and Boaz. During one 5-year streak, Gant's teams went 124-12. He coached 10 years before a team failed to win 20 games. His worst year was 12-12, never had a losing season, while posting 398 victories and 135 losses. At least one basketball team in the state tournament at each school coached by Gant. 22 players signed college scholarships, with 8 of those going to the SEC. Those great players include from Geraldine, Hob Armstrong, Fred Edmondson, and Billy Smothers. All 3 were offered scholarships to Georgia. Renee Watts from Alexandria ended up playing at LSU. Tommy Wheeler of Boaz received a scholarship to Vanderbilt. At Geraldine, he was 91-9 in 4 seasons. In 1 year at Alexandria, his team went 24-5. 6 seasons at Ringgold, Georgia, 158-37. He served as Boaz coach from 1965 to 70. Standing left to right, the football coach Dennis Hicks, next Olin Hayes, the principal for many years, and Coach Gant. Seated is the teacher Dot Brasher. His best record at Boaz was 26-8, the year Boaz went to the state tournament. That was another good bunch, Gant related. We had Tommy Wheeler, Sammy Bailey, Jim Smith, Haskell Ashley, and some others that were just great. The 1964-65 Boaz Pirate basketball team competed in the Class 3A state tournament at Tuscaloosa. The Pirates had won the Area 13 tournament title by beating Center 92-65 and Sylvania 62-55. They defeated New Hope 72-57 in the Region 7 championship game to earn a trip to Tuscaloosa, where they whipped Alexandria 57-44 in the quarterfinals. Boaz dropped a 64-62 decision to Eufaula in the semifinals, and then succumbed to Columbiana 54-50 in the consolation game. Team members kneeling from left to right, the manager Michael Hamilton, Gary Ledbetter, Mo Smith, Sammy Bailey, Mike Pullen, and manager Joel McCreelis. Standing left to right, the head coach C.K. Preacher Gant, Jimmy Smith, Gerald Tuffy Thomas, a Hall of Famer, Haskell Ashley, Tommy Goose Wheeler, Richard Bishop, Kenneth Rabbit Lassiter, and football coach Bill Hudson, another Hall of Famer. Lassiter was killed in Vietnam. The 1967 team, kneeling, Coach Gant on the left, and then Coach Gerald Hodgins on the right. The players, number 34, Craig Owen, 42, David Clark, 24, Ricky Hayes, 52, Jimmy Bishop, Hall of Famer, number 32, Mike Eubanks, 40, Bobby Duke, 20, Donnie Miller, 22, Ted Ledbetter, 30, Sidney Willis, and 50, Donnie Dobbins. The 1971 team, kneeling, number 22, Terry O'Donnell, 42, Randy Ross, Hall of Famer, number 32, Dan Gant, number 30, Trey Corley, number 20, Keith Roche. On the back row, Coach Gant in the white shirt and tie. Then there's Joel Dickinson behind Coach Gant. And then 44 is Gary Price, 24, Roger Morton, 12, Glenn Bear Franks, 14 Philip Eubanks, 10 Tony Gaskin, 34 Gene Miller, and on the right, the far right, is Coach Geiger, a member of the Hall of Fame. During those final 3 years at Boaz, the Pirates won 60 and lost 23. Here are the children, the grandchildren, daughter-in-law, and son-in-law. He coached both his son and son-in-law, Dan Gant and Mo Smith. Coach Smith is in the Alabama High School Athletic Association Hall of Fame. Gant's grandson, Casey Smith, was hired this year to head coach women's golf at Birmingham Southern. Smith comes to Birmingham Southern from Pelham High, where he had served as the head golf coach and the head varsity girls basketball coach. In the summer of 1993, they're pictured in front of the B.B. Sanford C.K. Gant Recreation Center. The family, left to right. Grandson Casey Smith, son-in-law Mo Smith, daughter Candy Smith, granddaughter Krista Smith, the son Dan Gant holding granddaughter Catherine Gant, the daughter-in-law Susan Gant, and standing in front, granddaughter Elizabeth Gant. After his stay at Boaz, Gant got out of the high school ranks. He took over as the owner of Count Nayati on Gunnersville Lake. He had been the summer camp director there for 14 years when it was owned by Southern newspapers. Mrs. Gant continued to teach in Boaz. Then there was the 15 years as director of the Boaz Neighborhood Facilities Center. Pictured in front of the B.B. Sanford C.K. Gant Recreation Center, on the front row left to right, the employees Ricky Smith, Denise Maples, and Darrell Parrish. On the back row left to right, the director Bill Hamilton, assistant director E.R. Brown, employees Terry Langley, Mike Bryan, and Alan Brock, Mayor Bruce Sanford, and Councilman Billy Fawcett. This picture was taken in the early 90s on the day the rec center was renamed for former Mayor B.B. Sanford and Coach Gant. The city of Boaz named the Recreation Center a baseball field and a street in honor of C.K. Coach Gant. The coach they called Preacher had a great love for Dixie Boys baseball. Here is the coach with Mayor Billy Dyer, some Dixie Boys, and the kickoff of Dixie Youth Week. His career was filled with awards and accolades, like being named the Boaz Man of the Year 1980. U.S. Senator Howell Heflin throws up the hand of C.K. Gant as a signal of victory after he was named the Boaz Man of the Year. Heflin congratulates Mrs. Marion Owens and Gant on the winning of Man and Woman of the Year. Heflin spoke at the Boaz Chamber of Commerce banquet when the awards were given out. The youngster that picked up the name Preacher because he mocked the family's rural church pastor was called on to say a prayer over a seriously ill person. In 1952, his wife Hattie remembers, we had just moved to Geraldine. A man came to the door in dire need of a preacher and said a member of his family was seriously ill and asked if the preacher would go say a prayer. Gant kept telling the man, I'm not really a preacher, I'm a basketball coach. He was trying to hide a smile, thinking that someone actually could mistake him for a real preacher. Bear, Shug, Limp, and Preacher accepted the fact of their nicknames. Coach Gant might not have liked it, but he was the Preacher. That name, along with his record, set him apart. Ladies and gentlemen, our inductee, C.K. Preacher Gant.